Poštovani, dobrodošli na promociju knjige Women and Work in the Northeastern Adriatic, Postwar Transitions, edited by Marta, Verginella and Urška Strle. Učesnici su Marta Verginella, Urška Strle i Amir Duranović.
Zahvaljujem. Poštovane kolegice i kolege, dragi prijatelji, pozdravljam vas na početku promocije knjige koju imamo ovdje ispred sebe. Knjiga se zove Women and Work in the Northeastern Adriatic, Postwar Transitions. S nama su urednice moje drage kolegice Marta Verginella i Urška Strle. Knjiga je nastala kao rezultat jednog zajedničkog projekta, suradnje i objavljena je u ediciji koja također ima nekoliko drugih naslova posvećenih pitanju historije žena, historije rada, nacionalizma i transnacionalnih kretanja u 20. stoljeću i ova knjiga koju imamo ispred sebe je takva. Već 2 dana ili 3 već na Historiji Festu razgovaramo o različitim formatima i načinima na koji se može govoriti i prezentirati povijest. Danas ćemo u okviru ove promocije imati jednu kombinaciju, neku vrstu, kako bi se to popularno sada kazalo, hibridne varijante na način da ćemo prvo predstaviti jednu kratku video animaciju o projektu i koji će nam pomoći da vizualiziramo prostor koje su kolegice imale kao predmet svoga istraživanja, a potom ćemo u jednoj bilingvalnoj varijanti, da tako kažemo, govoriti o sadržaju ove knjige koja, evo iz onoga što ja mogu za početak kazati i predstaviti, osim uvodne studije koju potpisuje kolegica Marta Verginella, ima prvo poglavlje koje je posvećeno pedagoškom i administrativnom radu, odnosno ženama u pedagoškom i administrativnom radu, zatim drugo poglavlje koje je posvećeno intelektualnom i umjetničkom radu i treće poglavlje o ženama u industrijskom radu i na taj način ćemo koncipirati i našu današnju promociju. Za početak video, molim vas. Zahvaljujem. Evo, dakle, ovo je bio za sve nas jedan dobar podsjetnik na historiju 20. stoljeća, pomjeranje granica koje su nužno sa sobom vodile različitim vrstama migracija ljudi, što prisilni, što onih koji to nisu i koji su se naravno odrazile na političku, društvenu, ekonomsku povijest. Ono što ova knjiga posebno tretira jeste mjesto i uloga žena u tom transnacionalnoj perspektivi. Ja ću sada zamoliti Martu da nam u nekoliko riječi, so in a few words, to give us a framework of the project, conceptual, theoretical, and the methodological highlights on the researching women history and labor history all together as part of your research project, both within this book, but your general research also, as well as we all know, or as we could have seen from your biography, it's something that you have devoted much of your research time to both labor and women history. Please.
Hvala, Amir. Thank you, Amir, for this short presentation, to also this introduction. And I thank also the organizers for this opportunity to present our book and partially also our project. This book was project and thought out in the context of the IRC project, Irene, with the title Postwar Transitions in Gender Perspective, the Case of the Northeastern Adriatic Region, and for this reason also this short presentation. And this project was directed by me in between 2018 and 2023 and was realized with a very international team composed by Slovenian researchers, Italian researchers, Croatian researchers, also with one Serbian researcher, and I think Austrian, yes, I mentioned all. And this book, published by SEU Press, is the result of our effort to explore the issues concerning the labor market and concerning the work of women during three transitions. The first after the Great War, the second after the second transition, naturally, after the Second World War, partially also the third transition after the dissolution of the socialist Yugoslavia and naturally after the wars in the Yugoslav area. Our first goal has been to include women in the treatment of post-war period and transition, because we found a big lack in the historiography. We found a big lack, especially in the big synthesis of the post-war periods in the European context. And actually, we found a lack, a gap also in the treatments of the history of women, especially West-oriented. And we found this lack concerning the North Adriatic area also in the studies of history of women work. And as I mentioned, this was for us the first goal to filling this gap. The second, our aim was to intensify the comparativeness. And for this reason, we use the concept of longue durée histoire, because for us it was very important to detect the sphere of continuity and the sphere of discontinuity in many different fields of labor, of works. We analyzed specifically the women's employment in education, in the sector of civil services, in the intellectual and artistic spheres, and especially in the sphere of industry. The focus was, in our book, specifically the textile and tobacco factories. One another big question which was in our focus was the conciliation between the productive and reproductive work, or between the private and public sphere, and also between the public, professional, and also political sphere. For this reason, we analyzed the interweaving between class and education, but a big attention was directed also on the dynamics between the center and peripheries, because if we analyze the urban center as Ljubljana, we found a very different situation in the labor market as we directed the gaze on the periphery, as Istria or, I don't know, the Soča, Isonzo Valley, or Carinthia. So we are very careful to analyze this relationship between the center and the periphery of all this state, because naturally we followed the changes in the context of Italy labor market, Austrian labor market, Yugoslav labor market, and for this reason it was very important to distinguish the periphery from the center of the states. Which type of sources we used? Very different sources. Naturally, the official sources produced by the state, administration, and so on. But we used a lot also of autobiographical documents, oral testimonies. We use also the approach of the oral history, and still biographical and microhistorical approach. So the intent was to mix very different sources and very different approaches. The pioneering results of the book, naturally in my view, was especially the transnational approach. Because we know in this area, we have a lot historiographical national production. So the historiographies are nationally oriented, generally. And for this reason, for us, it was very important to improve the transnational view. After I want to mention what was this transnational approach in the context of the study of teachers. One example. The attempt was to compare female professions during different transitions, as explained before, and also to understand how was important the ethnic factors in the or the ethnic factor in the context of the labor market. Not only in the case of the administration, not only in the case when the citizenship was important, but also in the context of the factories, because we find a lot of cases where the nationality of workers was very important in different situations, not only after the First World War, but also after the Second World War, and also after the dissolution of Yugoslavia. If I mention still other results of our book, I think that yes, one of the big questions in the historiography was produced the war and was produced the post-war in the context of the female work. Our studies understand that we have very different dynamics. The war opened the labor sphere to women, and this is clear in the context of the First World War and also in the context of the Second World War. But what happened after the end of the wars? We have very different situations, and this situation depends on the sector of work. Because we have a lot of cases where the women were excluded in the post-war from the labor market, but we have also the cases where women remain. And I want to mention two cases. The first was Carinthia after the First World War. In a very destroyed situation or very collapsed Austrian situation, in Carinthia, the women remained in the factories because naturally for the national primacy, it was very important that also the women remained supported of the Austrian authorities. Another case, the case of Trieste territory and also Gorizia territory, where the Anglo-American authorities opened a new profession for women. This is the case of policy, yes. And I want only explain that in the case of the post-war, we have a very different situation, and for this reason, we don't use this clear differentiation between war and post-war in the field of the labor market. Okay, I finished here. I have still other statements, but...
Okay, thank you very much. Obviously, the book is structured in a way that there are many ways and approaches how to read it and how to interpret both the conceptual part of the project, but also some particular research chapters. Now, having listened to your general framing of the book, and paying attention to the toponymy that was used while you were speaking, obviously you had many difficulties both in following the changes on the map, but also changes in the toponymy and the topography, different languages, different cultures, how they interact and how they reflect in historical sources. So I would like to ask Urška for some additional explanations about the methodological difficulties that you were facing while analyzing Fiume, Rijeka, Gorica or Gorizia or some other places. How did you find the best solution, so to speak, in this kind of facing multinational or post-imperial traditions in the North Adriatic, where it can be seen and read in many different and multi-layered perspectives? Please.
Good evening to everyone. Dobro večer svima. Ja ću da pričam na engleski, pošto moje poznanje srpskog ili hrvatskog ili bosanskog baš nije dobro. Yes, the region we paid attention to is in its core multi-cultural, and it's the place where actually three great European cultural worlds meet. So Germanic, Roman, and Slavic worlds. And throughout the 20th centuries, as you could see from this animation we just saw, this area demonstrated quite a multicultural reality, especially in the border areas and in urban areas. And this also reflects in the use of place names over time. We could see that for Trieste, we also have a German expression that was valid in documents. It was Triest. And there is also Trst, like in many Slavic languages. We have three names for Ljubljana. One is Laibach, German, and Ljubljana in Italian. So, namely, I would say that majority of places in this area have at least bilingual version. But, you know, if you would see the movie once more, you could see that we also entered different toponyms for different periods. This change of these place names it implies not only administrative denominations, but also symbolizes the aspect of loyalty in the era, of identity in the era. And this aspect was also crucial for all state-regulated working positions, where also women took place in the field of, like we said, pedagogic activities, civil service sector, or, for instance, monopoly factories like tobacco was one. And we could see that they show the principle of ethno-nationalization in the era, and this was one of the aspects apart from political ideology, which also influenced who could find work somewhere. Mm-hmm. We could say that for the First World War it was very much important. The national I did some research on tobacco factories, combined 3 tobacco factories in the region. One was in Ljubljana, the other was in Klagenfurt, Celovec. The third was in Rovinjo, in Istria. And we could see they both started from this Austrian monopoly, tobacco monopoly, but then after the First World War, they were divided in 3 different states. Rovin became Rovinjo, it became part of Italy, Ljubljana became part of Yugoslavia, and Klagenfurt remained in Austria. And in this sense, it was also in this very much political principle which framed the national policy was ethnic. And also this aspect served as a tool as an employment policy, so to speak. For instance, in Ljubljana, a lot of German-speaking or pro-German or pro-Habsburg workers were fired. The same happened in Klagenfurt, where in light of all these national tensions, Slovenian workers were not very favored to work there. And also in Rovinjo, there was a tendency to employ pro-Italian workers. So this is actually why we remain sensitive to this multilingual toponyms, which tell more than just change of names.
Okay, thank you very much. Obviously, something that we all have to pay attention to while doing research, something especially in the areas of Europe or outside of Europe as well, when you face a truly, as you said, multicultural areas or areas that have multi-layered histories. Now let's focus more on particular cases of your research, and I would like to ask Marta to give us some kind of overview of your particular research about women as teachers, and please, for the sake of the program itself, just mind the time.
Yes,
thank you.
Yes, yes. Now I will very schematic. The title of this my research, or this my chapter, is Female Teachers, the Fairy Women of Transnational Education. Why this title? Because I found a lot of similarities in very different national contexts and also state contexts, analyze the teachers, especially the female teachers. Naturally, the education sector was one of the crucial transitional sector. All state or all transnational policy dedicated a lot of attention of the schooling, especially of the teacher schooling. It's very interesting that the Italian authorities, after the First World War, closed the Slovene, very quickly, the Slovene school for teachers, and this happened also. That happened also after the Second World War in Istria, and similar situation we find also in Styria after the First World War. So this is one of interesting element. The second is the use of the young teachers, female teachers, unmarried and available to go in a very in the periphery, because this happened from Budapest, from the teacher which arrived from Budapest in Prekmurje, or the teachers who arrived in Istria after the Second World War from the other part of Slovenia. But this happened also after the First World War in the context of the Friuli Venezia Giulia. So if we use the concept of the longue durée, we find a lot of similarities in the use and in the ideological and also nationalistic use of the underlined young female teachers, and this emerged from the sources. Another, in all this context, was very important the ideological or national primacy, and for this reason, naturally, the teachers are absolutely important. And was very important their support for the new authorities.
Thank you very much. Obviously, a lot of reasons for all of us to engage into detailed reading of the book. But maybe, Urška, you said something about this Austro-Hungarian-based, monopoly-based tobacco factories, now split into three different perspectives. How would female history fit into this post-imperial nationalistic or national perspective?
Yes, it's very typical, very characteristic for tobacco factories that they employed a great part of women from, let's say, about 75% of all employees in the factories were women. Another thing that is Of course, this share changed over time, but I don't have time to waste on this. What is very important with tobacco factories is that they were, for most of the time, state-owned. And that means that they were kind of a reflection of state policies towards women and towards the workforce. And what is even more interesting for us historians, tobacco factories had a rather long tradition of making tobacco products. There is also one very famous tobacco factory here in Sarajevo, just close to the building where we are. I mean, it was, and then it moved, yes. In Marin Dvor, it was the first factory, and then it moved to Profalici. Yeah. So, for tobacco factories, it's very interesting because there was a network of tobacco factories which Austro-Hungarian Empire built in order to make underdeveloped towns more developed. Because it meant, in contrast to Italy or Germany, where tobacco factories were built in bigger cities, in Habsburg monarchy, tobacco factories were built in developed towns, like small town Ljubljana, Rovinj, which only had several thousand of people, Klagenfurt, and many other. It has about 30, Austrian monopoly had about 30 factories under its monopoly. There were 4 additional in Bosnia, but it was a separate field. It was not under the yeah. I'm sorry, it's really complicated, but what I wanted to say that we can, through this long temporal perspective, we can observe the policies of the state, how they addressed women question, how did they address the other, because this workforce was usually not only of one ethnic background. But we also found that, of course, it's not only ethnicity or ideology that matters, it was also generation, it was also social status, it was education that mattered in this area. And in this case, I would only say that different temporal frameworks, different very diverse policies over this tobacco workers. We could see that, for instance, in Austrian case, there was a huge growth of women emancipation movement as well as workers' movement. Whereas when Ljubljana tobacco factory came under Yugoslavia, it was a completely different tradition. In contrast to Yugoslavia, in Austria, we gained basic political and social rights, whereas in Yugoslavia, it was completely different. In the Kingdom of Yugoslavia, it's completely different picture, image. Whereas in the, let's say, socialist Yugoslavia, it was actually for all Yugoslav tobacco factories, it was the best time for the workers, also for the women. Both aspects actually flourished. And just one sentence, at the breakup of Yugoslavia, the privatization appeared, and with it all these neoliberal principles which did not work in favor of workers.
Thank you very much. Now I'll switch back again to Bosnian language. Hvala još jednom. Za kraj, posljednja rečenica s moje strane. Dakle, knjiga je na engleskom jeziku, zato smo na ovakav način organizirali i predstavljanje. Sretna okolnost je da je ova knjiga dostupna u online formi. Svi oni koji su zainteresirani za čitanje, upoznavanje sa više detalja, dovoljno je dakle da naslov knjige ukucaju bilo koji pretraživač na internetu i knjiga će biti dostupna, a vjerujem da smo ovom prezentacijom sve vas zainteresirali da obratite pažnju i na ovakvu vrstu historiografskih istraživanja. Još jednom hvala mojim sagovornicima, hvala organizatorima History Festa na prilici da i o ovoj temi danas govorimo.